Hari Om, everyone. Thank you for joining in today. Today is a special day on a Tuesday. I am glad to see so many of you here. And tomorrow, the anniversary celebrations at the Balaji temple starts. And it will be wonderful if all of us can make a trip to Balaji temple to be part of the celebration. So with that, I will start. Oh. Om. Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vitvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandathami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullaravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetam Vridaduhe Namaha. Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. So we are on the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. We are coming towards the end of the chapter. And for today, in the reflection time, I thought I would take up some of the questions, which one of the questions which I hurried up a little bit last time. So I'm going to take a little more time to describe that. But I'm also going to take up an extensive list of very nice questions that Meena Shankar had sent. So we will go through that now. The first question she had asked was, for a person to get at least a few of the Satyabrashtan qualities, in this case, I'm translating that to Sthita Prajna or the man of wisdom, or here she calls it Satyabrashta, which is also a person, a man of truth. What should he or she do? So again, I'm going to use this as a reflection time, and I would like to hear from you. What do you all think he should do? And I will also answer after I see what answers you have given. Any thoughts, any questions, any comments on this? At least a few of the qualities that we have seen so far.
Titiksha.
What is that? Titiksha. Oh yes, Titiksha is very good. It is, yes. Titiksha means the ability to withstand extremes in our conditions. So typically, like today is 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm actually doing it without a fan and AC in my house today. And I can see that I'm practicing it a little bit on Titiksha, but that is what Titiksha means. It is at the body level, at the mental level, and also beyond that at the intellectual level. So Titiksha is definitely one of the qualities. Any other qualities?
Maintaining staying calm.
Staying calm. Exactly.
Whatever the case may be.
Yes, yes. So taking things, because the reason we need to stay calm, why do you think we should stay calm?
And accept victory or defeat or happiness or sadness
Mhm.
as a thing which will not last forever.
Right, right. So you're right. I mean, it is essentially the ability that they won't last forever. You said it very well. It is all temporary, right? So, in that sense, acceptance of anything that comes our way, because all these things change. And so we need to accept that. You're right. So these are a couple of them, right? So this is a few of the qualities we can see that. But at the level of what we can see is that there is this whole thing called sadhana chatushtaya. And I guess at some point during my Gita prachans, I will present to you all the sadhana chatushtaya qualities, but some of them which you just said, which is titiksha, but more importantly also is this acceptance of anything that comes our way, and not just acceptance, of course, surrender it at the feet of the Lord and say that, oh Lord, you're the one who's the big boss, you're the one who's going to take care of me. But also with this idea that nothing is permanent. As I always have this mug, which says, I don't know if you can see it, it says change, focus, speed. I like this cup because the only thing constant is change. So in that sense, those are some of the qualities.
To overcome all desires.
To overcome desires, yes.
And be happy.
And be happy. Yes.
In his own self.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is definitely a Satya Brashta quality at the highest level.
Yes.
Amma, you're echoing this shloka number 55, right? Prajahati yada kaman.
That's it, yeah.
Yes, very good, very nice. Anything else that people can think of?
Not giving to sensual objects or sense objects, like material things.
Right, right.
Not like being satisfied with oneself and not dependent on other objects of the world.
Yes, yes. So a Satya Brashta or a Sthita Prajna is a person who is Atmaiva Atmana Tushtaha. That is again the second part of this Prajahati Yada Kaman. Yeah. So in that sense, when the person is happy within herself or himself, then why would that person even look for happiness in the external objects, in the external relationships, right? So in that sense, the person is happy within themselves, within oneself. So the next question that Meena had asked, which I think is a very pertinent question, because I think I gave the story and perhaps the moral of it did not come through. So let me go to that story again. I will put that, this here it is. So the story of the frog and the fish in the well is necessary because it really tells us the significance of the story is it is trying to show us about the happiness or the quality of the Satya Brashta. So the qualities of Satya Brashta, which we are also in that sense, we are also the same Satya Brashtas, but the problem is we don't act like one, okay? But the story here was, I'll give the story a little bit and then I'll explain the significance again. The story was about how this frog, which was in this small well, which was very close to this big ocean. Okay, this is the well over here, and this is the well here. And this frog was in this well all the time. It was born in the well. It lives in the well. It enjoys everything in the well. The whole well was the only life that it saw. One day, it had a guest, which was a fish, and the fish came from the ocean. And the fish was trying to explain to the frog the magnitude and the beauty of the ocean. And the frog, try as it may, it just could not understand what the fish was saying. So this is the significance of that aspect is for us. So we live as a frog. We are in our own world, and we try to get happiness in our own world, in our own objects, in our own relationships, and we think we are happy until a Mahatma, until our teachers, they come and they explain to us what has been written through our Guru Parampara textbooks, the Shastras, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and all the Prakarana Granthas. All these things now tell us, hey, so the fish is actually all these texts, all these teachers. It signifies all that. The fish is now telling this frog, who is like us, about, hey, the life you're leading, it is in such a small thing. And you think you are the small, finite person looking for happiness in all these small things. But let me tell you, you are actually something much, much bigger, much huge bigger. But then we, like frogs, we still love our own comforts, our own AC, our own rooms, our own cars, our own clothes. And we say, no, I really don't want anything. I'm happy with what I have. So that's what this frog is. Frog is that represents all the comforts and everything that we are so comfortable with. But then the fish in the form of this Mahatmas is telling us, no, come out. Read all these texts. Study the Shastras. Study the phenomena of God. Study the infinite nature of God. And so let me show you. So that's where the fish is now taking the frog to the ocean. Or in other words, the significance being that we are now being exposed to the greatness of our Shastras, which is telling us really the true nature of who we are, the nature of Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. All these things are what this whole Shastras are giving us. And that is the significance here. And once the frog comes out of the well, so too for all of us, once we come out of our own notions, of these limited notions of who we think we are, once we come to know our infinite nature, then we really, that's that state of realization. And this happens through Shravanam, through listening to all the texts, and then reflecting upon all the texts that we have studied. And then finally, Nididhyasanam, where I'm able to shatter that notion of the fact that I'm that frog, and to recognize that I'm not the frog. I'm actually much, much bigger than what I am, much bigger than that limited frog. So that's the whole significance of the frog and the well story. And so Sri Krishna in this shlokas is wanting to express the qualities of that Satya Brishta through explaining all this. And before going there, because it's such a hard concept for us, I thought I would use this example of the frog in the well as an analogy to show that this is what Lord Krishna is trying to show us. He's trying to show us the ocean. He's trying to show us the beauty of who we are by exposing us first through the qualities in this 10, 14 shlokas that we're doing, and further on going to, really how we can slowly get out of this notion. And that is what is given in the 3rd and the 4th chapter. And then when we come to 6th chapter, we learn about the meditation techniques. And then 7th chapter, we come to know about this aspect of what is Ishvara. And 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, all this, the second part from 7th to 12th. And then finally, from the 13th to 18th, really is the Aikya, we call it, or that thou art, which is really indicating the relationship of Jiva and Ishvara. So that whole thing. So this whole thing is really that ocean of knowledge that we are looking at, which Bhagavad Gita is one way where we can study that whole Shastras. I know it was a long explanation, but I wanted to make sure that significance was explained there. Okay, so the third question was a powerful question here, where today actually I have quite a few slides I've prepared. Attachment. For a person to get rid of attachment, what Lord Krishna says, keep a detached attachment. But in practical life, this is so hard. For a person to attain that level, will yoga and meditation help? That's the question. So the answer for this is yes, yoga, meditation will definitely help, but it also has to start with having the knowledge. Knowledge is very, very important because, as we all know, as a simple example, when we are young, and when I'm very young, when you're a baby, for example, our mother would have said, don't touch the fire. And the kid would not touch the fire. But at that moment, the child doesn't know why he should not touch the fire. But later he understands that fire is one of the very powerful sources of destruction. And so you have to be careful on how to handle it. And we understand about the heat and the temperature and everything about fire, right? With that preparedness, now my mind is well prepared to move forward. So in that sense, having the knowledge slowly, again, we have to look at what our qualities are. What is my sattva, rajas, tamas composition, so to speak. So depending upon who I am and depending upon what my motivation is in trying to develop myself, I can actually put together a sort of a recipe on where I want to start with. So the recipe that is always given is, a 20-20-20 kind of a recipe, which is you always have to make sure that at the body level, we are fit. So 20 minutes of yoga or something like that is a great thing. And then at the mental level, because we are emotional people, we want to make sure that we are always in satsang, in the company of good people, because only good people can influence our thoughts to move forward in life. And so reading about the biographies of Mahatmas, Puranic stories, Ramayana, Mahabharata, all those things helps. And then finally, at the intellectual level, to be able to study the Shastras, to listen to pravachans, and to develop a mental thing of shravanam, of listening, that helps. Once that is done, then what happens is meditation becomes easier. In order for meditation to become easier, first I have to clean up a little bit in my mind. And that is why this is important. However, instead of meditation, if you do japa, for example, japa and also namasmaranam and, likita japa, a lot of those things again helps in purifying my mind. But along with all this, karma yoga is very, very important, where the ability to perform my actions without any ownership of myself and without the expectation of any results, that also is an important aspect. So a lot of those things are needed in order to get to this detached attachment. And that is what Lord Krishna will be talking about more in all the shlokas when we move forward. And the last one, when a person's attachment desire is not fulfilled in his or present life, does it mean that the Atma will still be wandering? And will they definitely have a human birth? So here, a couple of clarifications. The Atma here, I would substitute that with the Sukshma Shariram or the subtle body. So the subtle body is the one which actually travels from one body to another body. And it's almost like me, taking a car driving from here, Detroit to Chicago, and then Chicago, the car breaks down. I get a brand new car and drive further on to LA or something like that. So in all this, me as the jiva is intact as I go from one body to another. Now, this jiva, because the reason why it goes forward, keep going forward, is because the desires are not fulfilled. Like I gave this example of the moving from here to Chicago or from here to Chicago, my desire is still not fulfilled to go to LA. So I have to take another car to drive. So too, in my birth, in Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Jananam, that story which we have said before from Bhajagovindam, my Sukshma Sharira needs a body to fulfill its desires. So that is why it continues on. So that Atma will need to be substituted with Sukshma Sharira. Until the Sukshma Sharira's desires are no longer troubling it, and there's a complete control of everything, and the realization of the fact that I am that Atma, when that comes, at that point, there are no desires and there is no need for any human birth to take place. So that's this thing here. If you have any other questions or any thoughts on this, please do send my way, because these are very good questions. And I'm so glad Meena asked this, because I'm sure this is the same questions that, many of us have it, and she has articulated that very well. So thank you, Meena.
Thank you very much, Sunitha. That was a very great explanation. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So the next question which Ganga had asked last time, she said, in Gita, as we're in the process for the quest for knowledge to reach the higher level, which as from the previous question, where Satya Brashta, where we talked about, as we go to the higher level, can you explain how does a confusion arise and lead us to a down path, and what is super consciousness? So first of all, here, this is the word super consciousness has come in the English translation of the words in a few of the shlokas. You will see that probably shloka number 54, and even earlier it has come if you look at the commentary. Super consciousness here refers to essentially the aspect of what we would call as the absolute reality or consciousness principle, or the absolute consciousness, or you could call Brahman, Atma. All these names are the same thing. That is what super consciousness here means. Now, let's talk about, in this process of quest for knowledge to reach, can you explain how does a confusion rise and lead to downfall? I'm interpreting this by saying that we are at the moment in a certain, what should I say, in a certain milestone in our journey as we're moving forward. And the quest for knowledge will only actually help us to move forward and not really to a down path. So that has to be clear, because it is ultimately only knowledge, coupled with devotion, and doing all our actions with this aspect of the fact that I'm not the karta, I'm not the doer, and I'm not the enjoyer even, I'm not the bhokta. That is the only way that we will be moving forward. But however, today, when compared to where we want to be, which is at the level of identifying ourselves with that absolute consciousness, in that sense, today I'm not there yet. And that is probably, I would look at it as the down path. Now, in this down path, we all are in this, we would call that in at least Advaita Vedanta as Maya. Or in other, and this is where sometimes the philosophy varies on how you would look at the identification with the absolute consciousness and the different paths. And for that, we will take time out one of these days to show how these three paths talks about realization and how does Bhagavad Gita respond to it. We will do that. But for the simplistic path here today, I want to just mention that when we think about down path, we are in this level of Maya, which is where we have this confusion, so-called confusion. The so-called confusion comes about because I identify myself with this ahankar. And this ahankar, when it identifies itself, when when it is influenced by the vasanas, vasanas are all these motivations, if you will, for why I am who I am. All the things that I do is because of my own motivation, and this is the inner urge we call as vasana. All this causes a confusion in my decision-making process. But then if I slowly and slowly through knowledge do not identify myself with my ahankar, which can happen only with knowledge and only through this process of shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, doing everything with this attitude of surrender. When I do that, slowly and slowly, my hold over my own ego slowly becomes lighter and lighter, So that's the only way that the confusion also will go and will take me upwards towards this aspect of really who I am, and which is that absolute consciousness or the super consciousness, which, as Ganga has mentioned here. So with that, we'll continue forward. So we are, I hope, Ganga, that explains for now. Again, this is a very deep question. We will be continuously visiting that aspect as we move forward. So we are in this aspect of looking at the lakshanas of Sthita Prajna in the shlokas 54 to 67. We saw Arjuna asking these questions in Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasha, samadhistasya keshavam, sthitadihi kim prabhasheta, kimasit kim asita, kim vrajeta kim. So this is his questions. So he's essentially saying, oh, Krishna, as we talked about last time, for the first time, after being dejected, he is slowly sort of lifting himself up now. And he's asking, oh, Krishna, tell me, who is this Sthita Prajna? You said Sthita meaning being steady, Prajna meaning wisdom. Who is this person of, a man of wisdom? And suddenly he is like, all this time he was so depressed, but the fact that he pulled himself up and he's asking, tell me, how does he talk? How does he sit? How does he walk? And why would he want to know this? Because I think he's seeing a glimmer of hope that maybe this will help him really fight this war. So he says, I want to be like him. Tell me. So this is really how we see, let us see how that relates to all of us, right? Today, no matter whether, we are a kid looking at, from the school onwards to our levels, we are always looking for the right role models in our lives. It starts with our parents, our grandparents. They're our early models. They're also, one of the best choices because we get a lot of values and everything. But many times these role models for us, depending upon, again, our sattva, rajas, tamas composition, I guess, our role models might change. And when we come to something like Gita pravachans and everything, we are suddenly looking for our role model, the role model also changes. We, while we are in school, maybe we wanted to be somebody like a film star or, a sports person. And then as we moved on further, probably we wanted to be somebody like an entrepreneur like Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, or maybe even Warren Buffett or something. Again, it depends upon our own composition. But then there's a point in life, no matter who you are, you're now looking for role models for who can help us in our life. Who are the perfect role models in our life who can help us move forward, who can show me that life is really not all this problems and everything that I'm going through. I need somebody. So this is why I think we look at these role models. And this is exactly what Arjuna is asking. Tell me about this Sthita Prajna. He's the role model that I want to be like that person. So Lord Krishna, he doesn't give him any names, and that's what we all look for, right? We typically look at, okay, who is this person? I want to be like that person. I want to be like this person. But Lord Krishna knew that it was not just Arjuna he was talking to. He's actually talking to all of us. So in that sense, where, Meena asked the question, the Satyabrashtas, what are the qualities? So the qualities that he starts off in this chapter is so beautiful. He starts off right off the bat with, as always, now you see how Bhagavad Gita is structured, right? Bhagavad Gita always starts with the highest and the bestest quality. So he starts off first with, in shloka 255, as Atmanyevatmana tushtaha. So he says, this man of perfection or person of perfection is not really, as much as we have seen, of course, the great Mahatmas, like all the Hindu saints, or even saints in other places, in other things, Buddha and everyone, they are all we have seen, but we also look at them and say, I don't think I can be that person. So tell me really, how can I be that, Satyabrashta? Even I want to be there. So tell me, what should I do? So this is why in 55, Prajahati Yada Kaman, that shloka, immediately Lord Krishna says, okay, that person is completely satisfied within oneself, by oneself. Atmanyevatmana tushtaha. That is the first and probably the only thing we really need to know here, which is that aspect of being completely satisfied in oneself. So this automatically brings the fact that this person is completely, does not have desires for the outside, because his or her need for happiness. Why do we have all these desires? We have these desires because we are looking for happiness outside. So this person is already understands that he or she is happy inside. That person is happiness, and that happiness is that ocean we saw in that story. That ocean, that amount of happiness is that person. That person is not the frog who's looking for small happiness in that small well, but that person is just infinite amount of happiness. So that being the case, that is the first thing that Lord Krishna tells him right away. He says that Rajahati Yada Kaman Atmanyevatmana Tushtaha. He has given up desires of the mind. He is satisfied in himself. Having said that, in the next shloka we saw Dukkeshva Anudvigna Manaha. He's totally unshaken by adversity. Bad things can happen. That person is just not shaken. And I'll show you a beautiful graph I put together today. And the person is also Sukheshvu Vigata Sprihaha. When things are happening really good, that person is not Sprihaha. Sprihaha means, jumping up and down like these balloons, So the person is not even that way. The person is just calm, totally calm. So that is one quality which was seen in the next shloka, which is 56. And along with that, in the same shloka, we saw Vita Raga Bhaya Krodaha. Vita means gone forever. Gone, which is, what is that? Which is Raga. Raga meaning attachment. Okay, so Raga here means attachment. Raga can also mean lights, like Raga Dvesha, but here Raga means attachment. So he's free from attachment, and because he's free from attachment, he's actually free from anger and fear. Both of them, bhaya, which is fear, and free from krodaha, which is anger. So we saw that too. And then we saw that another quality. So this is, again, I wanted to put these qualities because of when Meena asked the question, I said this in one frame, we can put all these qualities in one place, which is sarvatran abhisnehaha. which is the person is completely unattached. So this attachment, it is again the follow-up from here. The person is unattached everywhere. And whether it is the person is, some good things are happening to him, her, or bad things, the person is completely unattached. And at no point, na abhinandati, na dveshti. The person doesn't hate anybody because somebody said something to the person, and neither does the person rejoice. So this is, we saw in shloka number 257. And finally, the other one we saw was indriyanindriya indriyarthebhyaha, which is the person is completely in control of the senses or Dama. The example that I always like to give in this here is, for people like us, when we go to something like Costco, for a whole year and a half, we didn't have any of those freebies which they would hand out as soon as you go to Costco. But now I think last week when I was there, I saw that they've started doing that. And if you go typically around this 11 a.m. or something like that, you are sort of hungry. What happens? You look at those freebies that they're giving and you feel like, oh, maybe I should have one of those. See, that's a typical case of not practicing Dama. Dama means it is where my senses are under control. No matter what is coming in front of me, I'm not tempted by that. And that is what is Dama, which we will see a little bit too. So we saw all these shlokas in 5 this year. And I wanted to just put this one beautiful doha, part of a doha of Kabir Das, which says, Kasturi kundala base, mriga dundata banam mahi. Kasturi referring to the fragrance, kundala meaning in the belly of this mriga, deer. So, this deer, it does not even know that it just smells something very sweet in this forest. And what it does, it just keeps running and running and running, looking for where is this fragrance coming from? Where is this fragrance? It is so sweet smelling. But it doesn't realize it is there in its own body, in its own belly. So this is how, again, we all are. We are happiness. We have happiness within ourselves, but we are running around and round looking for that happiness in objects. If I have an iPhone 7, then I want the iPhone 8. And finally, today, iPhone 12 has come. So I want the next iPhone 12 because I think that is what is going to give me happiness. And that is how we are leading our lives. Whereas a realized person recognizes that the happiness is in oneself and don't have to go anywhere. So then this is what we saw in Shloka 55, which I already went through finally. And then Shloka 56, which is Dukeshva Anudvigvana Manaha, Sukeshu Vigata Sprihaha, Vitaraga Bhaya Krodaha, Stitadihi, Munihi Uchyate. So it's such a person who is very steady in wisdom and who has all these qualities. Vitaraga Bhaya, all that is a Muni. So today, again, the reason why we are not able to be this Stitadihi and a Muni, etc., is because we lead our lives like as if we are on an emotional roller coaster, right? We are happy one minute, the next minute we are sad. And it's all these feelings which, when Ganga asked the question, why are we confused? Well, all these things lead us feeling confused. We feel emotionally exhausted. And it's because of this that our brains are not available for us to even think and spend the time on this great knowledge, this treasure, which is there in our own quote unquote backyard. I want to say it, but backyard doesn't sound like a good thing here, but to say that it is that great knowledge treasure which has been given to us, which we need to bring it out to handle this kind of roller coaster things that which sometimes we go through in our life. So this is why I put this kind of a graph, which hopefully it'll help you to relate to what the shloka is trying to say, which is if we were to plot, if we were to look at our life and we look at all these levels of emotions which we go through, ups and downs, with all these joys and sorrows and everything, it really looks something like this. I'm just plotting the happy moments versus the sad moments in our life. And sometimes, when I'm happy, this is what the graph looks like. I'm really happy. This intensity depends upon how happy I am. I just put a very modest kind of a graph here. It can go up if you want, all the way up. And if next minute, if I don't get something, then I feel sad. And this is how it is. And then again, going up, going down, going up, going down. And this is on a time scale. Sometimes it may be too sharp. Sometimes it may take a long time. We might be happy. Sometimes, so this is how our life really looks like. So where does a Satya Brashta or a Sthita Prajna or a Jnani person fall in this whole thing? That person really falls right here. That person is constantly in this point here. You can take this point as a 0 or something, and this is plus, and this side is minus here. And so this person, this Satya Brashta, is always at this level. Anything and everything happens, that person is not affected at all. The person, that doesn't mean that that person is not enjoying it or doesn't feel. If suppose the person's somebody close to the person dies or something, or person goes to side, the person will be equally upset too. But unlike us, the person will be able to very quickly come out of it, because the person recognizes that these are, again, in the whole scheme, in the whole in this timeline of our life, these things happen and we have to just deal with it, because these are temporary at the end of the day. So this is just a graph to show you about this. I wanted to bring in more lines here to show that intensity depending upon, I wanted to give some examples, but I think you probably can chart out your own graph here. Think about the times, what were your happy moments of your life? You can take this, put it up here. What are the sad moments? And then try and see how you can flatten the curve. That is the whole idea. The idea is to flatten this curve through our sadhanas, and which can bring us closer and closer to this aspect of being, close to a Jnani Purusha. So that's the idea. So the second part of this shloka talked about Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Stitadihi Munihi Uchyate. And we saw about how that attachment, which is raga here, is really the cause, the main cause for fear. And in today's language, I guess one could say that it is not just fear, but it is also insecurity. Insecurity is a huge thing these days, which is responsible for a lot of the mental health issues that many people are going through. And that is nothing but caused because of the attachment. And that can lead to anger also. So we talked about last time this example about how, and this can happen. We talked about this example of how a teenage son going out and coming late, and the parents, because of the attachment, gets worried. And when the boy walks in, and then they're very fearful. But when the boy actually walks in, now they're very angry that this boy didn't come on time, right? So it's all a matter of attachment. And here I have just one more thing to show how this plays out for all of us. We attribute success as something as being passionate about something, right? Now, that passion can be misconstrued sometimes as also being very attached. And so what is the difference between success and a nervous breakdown here, that's what this is trying to show, is that in all of this, if I have something where I'm attached to a result, I'm attached that this is the way something has to happen, then that clearly is not really a success. That is really, I'm calling for a nervous breakdown, because I might work in such a way that I have the strong urge to control every single thing about around me to get the result which I want, right? And that can lead to a nervous breakdown here. So think about that in the context of attachment. So this, we need to make sure that that is not where we are, and we need to make sure that we eliminate any kind of those possibilities for us which can lead to things going haywire. So that being said, I thought I would use this opportunity for us to think about all the things that we get attached to and which takes us through that either the emotional roller coaster ride or even through those ups and downs that I showed. So something for you to think about as a homework, maybe assignment or whatever. And if you have any questions on this or thoughts, please send my way and we can discuss it next week also. But the whole point about this is, as we see where we have our attachments to material things and beings, either at the body level or at a mental level or at our intellectual level, we need to do is we need to practice the art of detachment. We need to practice the art of detachment, even as I'm acting in this world in any capacity. And Swami Chinmayananda had this beautiful, just 3 words in there, which is detach and attach. And what does that mean? It is basically the art of really withdrawing myself from really the lesser things, the smaller things, and trying to let them just fall away through understanding, so that I can actually use that power which is within myself for higher things. Just like the shloka in Bhajagovindam, Banastavat Krida Saktaha, Tarunastavat Taruni Saktaha, that whole shloka about how when I'm a boy, when I'm young, I play with toys. And then as I grow older, then my playthings are not those toys, they're my friends and everything. And beyond that, it's my job and, wedding, marriage and children and all that. And then after that, it's, retirement, vanaprastha, sannyas, all those ashrams, right? So how many of us really consciously give up our attachment to things which are of a lesser importance? Things which are of lesser importance. That's the idea of practicing the art of detachment. So the more and more I'm able to make a choice between 2 things, and I'm constantly choosing something higher and higher. It could be in many different ways. How am I using my money for things? But the most important thing is, how am I using my time? How am I practicing the use of my time to detach from myself, from the things that are not that important, and attaching myself to higher things? In management and everything, they always talk about this as prioritizing. But here we are really talking about not just prioritizing time, but prioritizing it for meaningful activities, something like Bhagavad Gita, which really shows me the art of living my life to the best possible way and to make use of my life, my body, my circumstances, which has been given, to the best possible use of it. So that's the art of detachment, which we need to practice here. So one can only achieve these great heights by detaching from the things that matter to a small extent taking a step back, and then moving ahead. So again, I leave this to all of you to think through about how this can work for you. So we looked at also shloka number 37 last time about how do we understand whether this person who is a sthita prajna, about how he speaks. Essentially, this is an idea of how does a person communicate, speaking indicating the communication. Ya sarvatra Anabhi snehaha tattat prapya shubhashubham na abhinandati na dveshti tasya prajna pratishtita. So how does a person communicate with everyone? So Anabhi snehaha indicating truly again by having a detached attachment, to say that. So snehaha means love and attachment. Anabhi sneha means having that same love, but doing it in a way which is non-attached. Actually, in Sanskrit, the sneha comes from the word snih, which means to stick. And that is what the thing is here. It means attachment in that sense. We don't want to stick too much to people, right? So that is why Anabhi sneha, don't stick, but try to see how you can, have, I don't know, I want to say a Velcro kind of attachment where you can detach yourself very easily when you want to, So that is the idea which is being meant here, which is to have the love, consider everybody as part of me, and in that sense, develop this Anabhi sneha. When that happens, then tat prapya shubha shubham. When we have that kind of an detached attachment, then no matter if the person were to praise me or whether the person were to, ridicule me or criticize me, then I don't get affected by it. The story of Buddha really comes to my mind here. Once Buddha and his disciples were traveling in the forest, and somebody comes to him and starts to abuse him with words, and then, but Buddha doesn't say anything at all. And later, when the person walks away, the disciples ask Buddha, how come you never said anything? That person was very mean to you. But Buddha just said, he may have said all these things, but I never took it. I never accepted it. So why would I feel bad? So that's the whole idea, which is where he's trying to show here. And again, Mahatmas, people who have given up many of the things that we all go through in our grahastha life, to that extent, they have less things that they need to worry about, or they can have a detached attachment for. So it makes it, is a path they have chosen for that reason. And so you can see that Mahatmas are detached, and yet at the same time, they are very, very loving, and they can show love to everybody, no matter who they are, because of this aspect of Anabhi snehaha. So the next shloka, which we also saw last time, which I will go through a little bit today, is where is the practice of Dama. It is a control of the senses. Remember the example I gave about Costco, right? It's the same thing now that we're doing a lot of things online. Even as we go to any website, on our right-hand side, there will be all these ads popping up saying that, did you know you bought these shoes last time? Do you want to buy these shoes? Or you bought this particular item. Guess what? I have 10 different things I can show you. Or another thing which I see in these days is New York Times. It was $4.50 per month. Now, guess what? It's only $1 today if you buy it right today. So no matter what, we are bombarded on our senses with something or the other. And we may say, okay, it's New York Times, it's only $1, it's $12 a year or whatever, right? But as always, we have to be careful, because just one act can lead to a million other things, and we get caught into it. So this is the aspect which was discussed in Yada Samharate Chayam Kurmunga Niva Sarvashaha Indriyanindriyartebhyaha Tasya Prajna Pratishtita. So just like how a tortoise, and we saw this here in this example, Yada Samharate Chayam, where a tortoise withdraws its limbs all the time under this thick shell. And this thick shell is for us as human being our Dama. It represents the Dama for us. When I can be under this Dama, then to that extent, I am protected in not, my energy is not leaking away to external objects. So this needs, again, a lot of control of the senses, and that can happen only by giving a different field for the senses to act on. Otherwise, the senses, their duty, in Kathopanishad, it's beautifully said about they are built in such a way to look outwards. But it is up to me to what I want to give that senses to gravitate towards. And that is where, if I occupy my mind always in Shubham, all good things, then the senses are not going to go out and grab things out. So I have just a thing here to say that if I'm detached, so when this thing can always come is in this control of senses, what does that mean? Does that mean that I should not allow my mind at all to go out and not possess anything? But not really. That essentially means that it is not that I should not own anything at all, or I should not buy things or whatever. But very, very important is that whatever I get should not really own me. I should not be owned by that. What do we mean by that? Essentially, it means that if, for example, if I do have this cup here, and by mistake, if I drop it on the floor and it breaks, of course, I might feel bad because I was a little clumsy in dropping it. But I cannot have that emotion for too long, because if I do have it for too long, then that means that the cup has really taken hold of me, and I'm already feeling bad that I broke it. So detachment means not to be owned by what we own. I love this quote here, which is similar to this here, but really nicely put here. So I see the time is already 9:34, and maybe next time I will start with 59, and I was hoping to do 59, 60, and 61 here, but we will continue that next week. Please do send me your questions. And again, I thank you for joining on Tuesday because of our temple activity. But next week, we will continue again on Wednesdays. And the next week, it will be on July 14th. So we'll stop here. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyat dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate. Purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Hari Om, thank you.
Hari Om.
You're welcome. I
Thank
think
you.
my screen is,
Thank you,
my screen is frozen here. Sorry.
Thank you, Sunitha.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hari Om,
Thank you,
Sister ji.
Sunitha
Thank
ji.
you.
Hari
Hari Om,
Om.
Pramila.
Thank
Hari Om.
you. Thank you. The graph was really nice.
Was it? Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that was good.
Did it make sense?
Yes.
It did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going a little crazy with that. I thought I would do some more things to show some examples, but I kept it at that.
No, it was really
Thank
nice.
you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Pawan.
Sunitha ji. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank
Hari Om.
you.
Thank
Hari
you.
Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om.